The Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York, the largest edifice of Christian worship in the world. It was here on January the 15th, 1943, that more than 1,000 distinguished citizens from around the world gathered to pay their last respects to one of the greatest scientists in recorded history. This greatness gave us the first radio broadcast in 1896 over a distance of 25 miles, 2 years before Marconi, who was credited with the invention of radio. He gave the world a system of electric power, which 80 years later has not been surpassed. He invented and patented over 900 different electrical concepts and devices. Are these ashes all that remain of this man, who even made it possible to bring down lightning from the heavens in the sight of man anywhere on the globe? Charlotte Musar, a close friend during his later years, was one of the mourners at Tesla's funeral. She had worked as an employee at the Yugoslav embassy. She recalled the mysterious circumstances surrounding the investigation of Tesla's papers after his death.
When I arrived, I found the safe was open. I don't know who ordered the opening of the safe. I learned later that all the government officials and the police and the coroner and so forth, medical examiner, had been there and gone.
Miss Musar explained to me that the Edison Gold Medal Tesla had been awarded in 1917 had been locked in a drawer inside the safe, along with the keys to that drawer.
Closed, the knob twirled, and the safe was locked.
Miss Musar had been trusted with the combination of the safe until it was reopened in Belgrade some years later.
The first thing we did is to open the safe. That's when I had pulled out the combination, gave it to Mr. Krasanovic, who opened the safe, and we looked for the keys. We couldn't open the compartment and everything else. Nowhere in the safe could we find the keys. We found them in a completely unrelated, unattached box among the many that were there finally. And when we did open this compartment, no metal was found. So that assured us that when the fellows at the warehouse told Mr. Cassani some guys were here, FBI guys were here one night taking pictures of everything. That's how they described it to him. So then we knew then that someone had gone through his papers. But who, when, and where exactly, we don't know.
Dr. John Trump, the founder of High Voltage Engineering in Boston, Massachusetts, was called in at the time of Tesla's death to inspect his papers. Dr. Trump was one of the few people in America who could read and understand the advanced work that Tesla had been engaged in. But Dr. Trump had been instructed to search for something in particular.
But I was particularly looking for something which would just be evidence of a secret weapon, which I was reminded by the agents, the two agents who were present during the entire time, was a matter of concern to the United States.
Tesla had written to the King of England and to the Tsar of Russia, offering a secret weapon. Both these countries at the time were involved in all-out war against Germany. Dr. Trump recalled the supposed properties of that weapon.
It had the capability of acting at a great distance, of being destructive to flying objects and things of that kind at a place which was remote from the source.
This is the safe of Nikola Tesla. It once contained his most prized possessions, his most secret papers. Miss Musar had arrived too late to know who had opened Dr. Tesla's safe or what had been removed. And Dr. Trump had found nothing which he considered dangerous or a secret weapon. Tesla had been a naturalized American citizen for 54 years, so why were his papers seized by agents of the custodian of alien property? I suspect that governments other than those of the United States, England, and Russia were interested in the inventions of Dr. Tesla. 1943, the year of Tesla's death, was destined to become a year of the most imaginative scientific experiments in the history of the world. In 1943, while England was reeling under the impact of guided missile bombardment from German-controlled Europe, America was involved in one of the most amazing and fantastic experiments ever devised by man. Codenamed Project Rainbow, the objective was to place two massive toroidal electromagnets around the hull of a ship to make it disappear. The only thorough investigation of this highly classified and bizarre experiment has been carried out by Charles Berlitz and William Moore, co-authors of The Philadelphia Experiment.
They had two enormous degaussers that established a field of resonance, which initially, as I said, was to make clouds of ionization around a ship and make it invisible, as well as invisible to radar. But what happened was much more surprising and unsettling than that. The ship seemed to glow in the field, and all of a sudden, with a sort of the way you put on a neon light, except in reverse, it flicked off instead of flicking on, and there was no ship there. I believe the experiment was done once more at sea, and it was the fact that the experiment was done at sea under better conditions that it became more or less public knowledge, because the disappearing destroyer was seen by a ship in convoy to disappear at only 100 yards away.
A group of scientists had been working towards these experiments for some time. They were headed by Dr. Albert Einstein and included an American electrical physicist.
Thomas Townsend Brown, and he was not to my knowledge a doctor, and is still alive, by the way, is perhaps a very typical example of an individual who devoted the best part of his life to trying to understand and develop technology that the rest of the world didn't seem quite ready to accept. Townsend Brown, who had a military background, was a lieutenant commander in World War II, had a nervous breakdown in 1943.
We know he was very depressed over the effect on the crew members of the experiment and the subsequent experiment which took place at sea.
Suddenly a nervous breakdown, everything else. It's common knowledge in any government that people who have a history of nervous breakdowns are security risks. They're not given classifications. There are indications that this work went on in spite of Townsend Brown under top secret government projects. I think they're far in advance of his research today.
Brown's research had included Project Winterhaven, experiments in interdimensional travel, similar to the Philadelphia experiment. He had worked for the French government on moving structures using only electrical power. And in 1957, he began to work in North Carolina with Agnew H. Bonson and James Frank King on electric flying craft. Agnew Bonson was killed in a plane crash in 1964, but I found King alive and well in North Carolina.
This was the early 50s when everybody was awfully interested in flying saucers anyway. And most of the people were trying to find some reason for their being here. Also, other people were trying to find how they could fly and they could do the things that people said that they could do. And so we wanted to go further. We wanted to do mechanical and electrical work to try to find a power source that was similar to what they might have been using. But we needed somebody that had done more along the lines that we believed in. And we hunted for various people. Finally decided that T. Townsend Brown, that we had read about but had never met, was working along lines that we liked. So we needed Brown. So we began to hunt for him. And this was in 1957.